As we've said a few times tonight, by happy coincidence, we're hosting this wonderful live broadcast on the, to the day, 7-year anniversary of Ben signing his employment agreement and founding the company. Some of the people who are here tonight were there at that very beginning. Caleb and I, of course, Levi, who's here with us, Jonathan Hay, others who are here today, some of whom write pseudonymously, so I can't even say their names. Very quickly thereafter, John Bickley came to join us, and he's still here tonight with Georgia Howe. They host Morning Wire, one of the most important shows that we're doing. John and Georgia. We launched Morning Wire because we knew that it's not enough to comment on the news. The left actually originates all of the news. They originate all of the journalism, and they speak to a group of people that conservatives are not great at speaking to, and that's women. Women listen to shows put out by the New York Times. They listen to shows put out by NPR. They listen to shows that purport to be very straight. It's not that they don't have commentary. They're commentary from top to bottom, but they hide their commentary behind this veneer of objectivity. And that veneer of objectivity is one of their great weapons. It's one of the most manipulative tactics that they have. And we thought, there are people who want to hear the news. They want to hear the news with very little bias, and what bias is there, they want you to own. And one of the things that we're very proud of with Morning Wire and with the Daily Wire more broadly, we own our biases. You know where we stand. That doesn't mean that we don't endeavor to tell the truth. We even endeavor to tell the truth when we think that our audience will be angry with us for telling the truth. Politics is not always a game that rewards the telling of the truth. But telling the truth doesn't mean that we're completely objective. We are not completely objective. We have a point of view. We are fighting for that point of view. We're fighting for that point of view because we believe that it's the last best hope for mankind short of God himself. And of course, the good thing about God is he can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, whether we have a good website or don't have a good website. I don't claim to speak for God. But we speak the truth as we understand it, and we hold ourselves to a very high standard. That's not the only new show that we've launched in the last year. Sitting right next to John and Georgia are our friends Crane & Co. These guys have brought such enormous energy to the Daily Wire, and yet again, why did we move into this space? It's because we wanted to compete for an audience that we don't think conservatives have historically done a very good job communicating with, and that, of course, is sports fans. Now, when I say conservatives haven't done a good job speaking to sports fans, that's not entirely true. Until about 7 minutes ago, only conservatives spoke to sports fans. But like every other institution in our culture, the left has permeated. The left has taken over. The left has driven out all dissenting voices. And we know that now it's actually incredibly challenging to even enjoy sports because essentially we're told every day we're not welcome. And Crane & Co. is challenging that. They're saying you have a right to sports. Sports are an important part of how a culture forms, and they cannot drive us out of that space. So thank you, guys. Since we launched the Daily Wire, you guys know the success has been unbelievable. The Ben Shapiro Show, which started in my converted garage pool house, has over the last 7 years been downloaded 1.6 billion times. The Daily Wire itself, the website, has received 7 billion page views. And for 18 months over the last 2 years, we were the #1 publisher in the world, the most engaged publisher, not the most engaged conservative publisher, not the most engaged news publisher, the most engaged publisher of any kind in the world on the #1 platform, Facebook. Not to keep coming back to God, but sometimes I shudder to think about all the human productivity that's been wasted on reading our website and what he'll have to say about it one of these days. All of that, of course, was by design. When Ben and I were doing a progenitor company to this, we were working together on a project, and we had an idea. And the idea was twofold. One, it's not enough to criticize culture. Conservatives have to create culture. And two, if you build it, they will come, is the greatest lie of the 20th century. You have to tell them about it. You have to engage in incredible amounts of marketing, and conservatives are terrible at marketing. And so we founded the Daily Wire to deal with the second problem first. What if we weren't the first people to decide, let's write news stories that aren't subject to a huge left-wing bias? We weren't the first people to think, let's talk about important issues, not from a left-wing bias. Of course, there are many forebears, many giants on whose shoulders we stand in that department. What we thought we could bring uniquely to it was the idea of marketing those ideas to a massive audience. We had early success, not just in this company. Before we founded the Daily Wire, our friends at Prager University were getting started, and they had a very similar vision. What if instead of circulating white papers among the initiated, we actually tried to tell people about these ideas that we think are so important? And so we brought that attitude to the Daily Wire. We invested more in marketing than we invested in content in those early years. And if you know anything about how the actual culture is shaped, you know that Hollywood movies, the marketing budgets can cost as much or more than the films themselves. We wanted to have that same attitude. How do we actually tell people about these things? And then we wanted to create culture. But here's the thing, culture is hard. Culture is expensive. Now, we were all LA guys, those original Daily Wire founders, Andrew Klavan. We're all guys who had worked in the industry, all guys who had worked in Hollywood, all West Coast guys. Probably we all still would be today if they hadn't absolutely destroyed the state in the last 5 years. We knew that we could bring cultural skills to bear, but we also knew that we had nothing like the money necessary, nothing like the breadth of talent that would be necessary, and absolutely no ability to tell people about the cultural content we made, even if we were able to make it. And so we thought the way to solve problem number one is to get really famous. And what I mean by that is we want so many people to so regularly engage with our content that it's like a spotlight. And when we decide to make cultural content one day in the future, we'll be able to shine the spotlight of the giant audience that we've won over through our more traditional news and commentary content. We'll be able to point that audience to cultural content. And along the way, there were a lot of setbacks. Along the way, a lot of people, even on our own team, stopped believing that we would ever get there. But Ben and I, Caleb, we were dogged about this. We knew that this was the future, and if we just kept winning, we could get there. And see, this is the difference between the Daily Wire, and there are many good conservative nonprofits out there, but there are many bad conservative nonprofits out there. The nonprofit mentality that permeates the right is, on the whole, a negative. There are certain things that only nonprofits can do, but the nonprofit mentality allows conservatives to win by losing. Something goes wrong, and you send out a fundraising email. We decided from the very beginning the Daily Wire must be a for-profit company. Our lives have to depend on winning. We can only win by winning. And so we won, and we won, and we won, and we won. And then COVID happened. And in the middle of June in 2020, when the whole world was shut down, when no one was going to work, I read an article. I should have looked it up before I came out. I believe it was in Rolling Stone, but I could be wrong, which essentially said, it's time to move away from Law and Order SVU. And the reason was, it's time to stop watching Law and Order SVU, because even though it's about a badass female detective who takes down dirty male sex offenders, it promulgates the lie that some cops are good. And I thought, A Hollywood in 2020, a Hollywood that will not make shows about good cops would be as if in 1960 Hollywood decided it couldn't make Westerns. They were literally turning on their bread and butter properties. They were literally turning on their audiences. Not just having some disdain for their audience, which they've had for a long time, but actually trying to push their audience away. And Caleb and I were sitting in the office that day, and we realized we achieved our goal. We have the giant spotlight, the marketing spotlight, the audience spotlight that we can put on cultural content. We have the financial resources to begin making cultural content. But we had also built something by accident. We didn't even know we were doing it. We had built the ability to distribute cultural content because we had built a piece of technology to allow people to subscribe in order to watch video versions of our podcasts. And that technology was agnostic as to what kind of content we actually put on it. And in that period of time, Dallas Saunier entered our lives. Dallas is here tonight. And Dallas said, hey guys, I've got a movie and Hollywood ain't gonna touch it. And that movie was Run, Hide, Fight, which became the first feature film released by the Daily Wire. The movie paid for itself in less than a week because conservatives are willing to support great content and ain't nobody giving it to them. And that's when things started to change. The very nature of the Daily Wire began to change. Here's the thing. We didn't start moving away from great news. We didn't start moving away from great opinion journalism. We didn't start moving away from commentary and analysis. We doubled down on all of those things. We started hiring investigative journalists. We started up-resing our editorial team. We started sending people like Luke Rosiak into the Virginia School Board. And we started helping Republican governors get elected in blue states. But we also started developing cultural content. And in the time in between, we've released, as you know, 3 more feature films, including one that I'm very proud of, and the entire cast is here tonight, our most recent feature film, which allowed us to undo the damage done by Disney when they unjustly canceled Gina Carano, Terror on the Prairie. Gina Carano, everybody. And I want to tell you something. Gina and I have never once talked about politics. I have no idea who Gina votes for. I don't know if Gina's a conservative or not, and I'm not going to ask her while you're all watching. But I can tell you this, Gina was not canceled by Disney for being a rabid right-winger. She was canceled by Disney for not being a rabid left-winger. It is the most unjust cancellation that we have ever seen since cancel culture began. And the movie that Gina produced with Dallas for us, Terror on the Prairie, is an absolute triumph. It is the metaphor for Gina's life. It is a woman standing up against those people who would take everything for her and saying no. And that's exactly what Gina's doing in her real life. Nick Searcy is also in the movie, and if you clap for him, I'll walk off the stage. I will walk off the stage. In addition to being an absolutely terrific actor, Nick is a fierce warrior for this country. He's one of the most outspoken actors to come out of Hollywood. He never backs down from a fight. He's a regular son of a bitch, I'm not going to lie to you. And we're very glad that he's on our side, Nick. And of course, not content to cancel Gina for no good reason, Disney also decided that they wanted all of your kids to be transgendered. And so we decided to spend $100 million making kids content. Now you may say, God King, where does this $100 million come from? I'm wondering myself. I can tell you this, the Daily Wire has been approached by 6 different entities in the last 3 months about doing a public offering by way of a SPAC, and we have said no. Because money ain't free. If you want to know why great companies filled with people who I deeply respect and deeply admire, companies like Fox News, will run stories about celebrating children who doubted their gender before they were 3 years old and then transitioned as teenagers. If you want to know why that happens, it's because money ain't free. It's because when you enter into these capital markets, both public and private, when you take money, you are taking people's opinions. And we have made a decision that, and I don't know if we'll be able to do this forever, that for as long as it is humanly possible, we are not going to take money from people who do not agree with the core mission of this company. I appreciate that you will all clap for me continuing to be poor. No. Here's the hard part. That means the money has to come from you. It means the people who empower this aren't going to be capital markets. It's not going to be fundraising from billionaires. It's not going to be fundraising from family offices. It's not going to be fundraising from family offices. It's going to be trading value to more and more and more subscribers so that we can keep creating more and more and more value, which we trade again for more and more and more subscribers, just like the way the left does it. If you watch one of our movies and you think, they didn't quite do everything that I want them to do. Yeah. It's like you've fallen for the lie that the new dad believes when he goes down to the gift shop at the hospital and buys himself a World's Greatest Dad ball cap. He's not even a mediocre dad. He's been a dad for 14 and a half minutes. We are just getting started. The world's greatest dad ball cap is an aspirational statement. We want to be the world's greatest media company. You have to help us. You have to stick with us. Give us a little bit of room to try. Give us a little bit of room to miss. We're going to knock it out of the park, and no one else is going to do it.